Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a video and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today, I'm privileged to have a very senior professional from the energy sector, Mr. Shailendra V. Gokhale. Shailendra, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
Shailendra is the managing partner of Rosefield DAA International, and he spent 28 years in the oil industry with Lubrizol and BP and Castrol. So Shailendra, what would you say are three key milestones in your life or your career?
Okay, so first of all, Ashutosh, I would like to express my sincere thanks to you and the brand called you for giving me an opportunity to have such wonderful interaction. And I was always looking forward to that.
Thank you.
So thanks a lot. I consider as my honor to be interviewed by you. Three milestones in my life and in my career, I would say, is that I used to work with Government of India company called Lubrizol. It is the world leader in the additives used for oil and gas, lubricants, etc. And that was a Government of India company, was working there. After 5 years, I was feeling little uncomfortable in the sense that I was getting too much into comfort zone, and I wanted to just come out of that. And then I decided to join a private company. So I joined Castrol. So I would think that that was the first milestone in my career where I wanted to get out of comfort zone and completely out of the typical mindset. And I was always looking for taking risks in life, and I think that's the first milestone, I would say. Then when I joined Castrol, I was doing really good and I enjoyed my stint with Castrol, and I always think that that's one of the best companies. I was very fortunate to work for such a great institution for 17 years. And during that, after 9 years working in India, and I was part of the leadership team also in Castrol India, there was an opportunity for me to go into global team as a part of global supply chain leadership team. And, I was asked whether I would be interested to head the chemicals portfolio.
Okay.
I'm basically a mechanical engineer, don't understand chemistry even today much. And the three managers or three heads had failed in that. So there were some people, they were advising me why you want to get into this such a slippery global role when you are doing so well, heading the function in India. But I always wanted to get again out of that comfort zone. And I decided to move to UK. And I decided to head that portfolio. And I always thought that, if things are not good, if I can turn around, that will always give me satisfaction. Another thought was that if I could meet a lot of people, I could network, which was always my passion, to meet people, to learn from them. I would at least achieve something there. So I decided to go to UK, and that was my second milestone. So completely getting into completely different setup, having Americans and Asians and Europeans working under me. So that also helped me to develop some of my leadership skills.
Okay.
So, and I was fortunate to have some really good people around me, including my boss, a British boss that time. So that would be my second milestone. The third milestone, I would think, Ashutosh, is when I decided to leave my cozy job, and in 2014, and that time I was earning eight figure salary. So I was a family man, so leaving job, and when there were huge prospects, of course, nobody in Castrol that time thought that I could even think of leaving. But I wanted to start something on my own.
Right.
And in 2014, when I turned 45, I thought that if not now, then when? I didn't want to retire in the company. I rather wanted to, make use of my knowledge for the betterment of the wider society. And that was always a reason why I wanted to get into my own. I started my consultancy that time, completely new. And I knew that I was going to be managing director and clerk or the
That is true.
means I have to say that you have to do your own Xeroxing. On the first day, obviously you can't think about setting up a big company.
Well said.
But as God was kind to me, I would say that things started really getting better. So that is my third milestone.
Fantastic. So, let's talk about the fact that you took two big changes. One when you left the government, then you left a big salary and walked away from that in Castrol as well. What decided for you to set up Rosefield DAA International, and what is the kind of work you do?
So when I talk about Rosefield DAA, basically it's a LLP, and I always wanted to make use of my 22 years of corporate experience and whatever knowledge I had acquired to share with the larger society. And industry had given me so much, so there was always a thought that I should give back to society, particularly in the form of knowledge. And one part of that is the training, but we also are in the advisory role. Means we help companies to optimize their cost by sharing best practices. So another thing is that we also help companies to develop their strategies. If they want to become a global player or regional player from a local player, we also help them to establish in those markets.
Okay.
We also help the companies basically to gain a knowledge that what's happening. So for example, some of my clients in oil and gas, they're always worried that what will happen to oil and gas tomorrow. With EV and renewable energy coming. So again, we help them to get the real understanding about the realities of the market and how they should evolve their strategy, how should they change their business models. We also help companies who are looking to acquire. So, we are also in M&A.
Very interesting. So tell me, as you, as an expert in the oil business, how long do you think reliance on oil will last?
Good question. So there, I would think that, oil is not going to die overnight, that for sure. Oil is going to be still required for next couple of decades. So against normal thinking that, okay, what will happen if EVs are coming? EVs will come. That will reduce the dependence on diesel and petrol for sure. But what's happening is that when we look at the overall world energy, and if I talk in terms of India in particular, I think India's dependence on fossil fuels is still huge and it is going to continue. So for example, our oil imports are not going to come down for next 2 decades at least. Means in best case scenario, as far as the cleaner fuel is concerned or alternative energy is concerned, oil demand still will grow by 20% over the next 20 years. And if we don't realize that vision of going into clean energy, then oil demand will actually double over the next 20 years.
Okay.
So, which means that in worst case scenario also we are going to require oil.
Wow.
And that is one of the reasons why India is still investing into refining capacity. Because we are talking about investing into West Coast refinery. Otherwise, India wouldn't invest. Companies like Reliance, yeah.
So tell me, if you were to look at India's energy profile, would you be able to tell me what percentage broadly is oil, solar, hydel, and so on?
Yes, absolutely. So today, if you see, maybe I will start with 2000 to 2020. India's energy requirement itself has doubled up.
Okay.
Right. And if you look at 2020, the share of the energy, then coal is the biggest.
Okay.
Coal is around 45%.
Still as big as that.
Is really big. followed by oil, which is around 30-35%.
Okay.
Surprisingly, gas is only 6% today.
Okay.
There was always a huge potential, and even 10 years back, companies and people and policymakers used to think that gas is going to be really big. This economy is going to be gas-based economy, which unfortunately has not happened. But still, vision of India is to make it 15% over the next 10 to 15 years.
Okay.
So that 6% will become 15%. These three continue to be dominant. You can clearly see
these three are almost 85-86%.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wow.
But going forward, since India is investing so much in solar, today solar contribution is just 4%.
Okay.
But if we really are successful in pushing solar vision plans, by 2030, I think we should be getting to around 25% if we are really pushing that hard. And if that happens, the dependence on coal is going to come down, which will be around 30%. So my guess is that by 2035, I think both will converge, coal and solar, and they will become around 30%. Oil will continue to be dominant force, so they should be around 25%, and gas is 15%. Compared to that, hydro and nuclear are going to be really small. Wind is also going to be very small still.
Okay. But it's very interesting that fossil, and I'm not an expert, but I would imagine oil, coal, and gas are all fossil.
Absolutely.
So when we keep talking about reducing dependence on fossil fuels, it doesn't seem to be happening.
See, Ashutosh, what's happening is that if you really look at the supply, it's all demand supply. There are huge reserves of oil, coal, and gas beneath the earth. So if I look at oil, we still at today's consumption, it will last at least for 100 to 110 years.
Really? Okay.
Because there are proven reserves and there are unproven reserves. So there are still a lot of reserves there.
Okay.
And definitely oil consumption is going to come down with renewable energy. If you look at gas, again, story is similar. Coal will dwindle, but still, if you look at country like India, India has today always fifth largest, has reserves of coal. So again, we are going to have lasting for another 60-70 years without any problem.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
But this whole debate that is going on in India, going on in the world about clean energy, what kind of time parameters do you see before clean energy actually becomes a dominant force in the overall energy portfolio?
Yeah. So clean energy, there is always an intent. Means government is definitely committed to Paris Agreement. If you look at the oil companies, instead of saying they are international oil companies, they are now saying that they would like to become integrated energy companies, which means that there is a strong intent coming also from oil and gas companies. So clearly, everybody wants to move to renewable energy, and that's, I think, is the need of the hour. Means nobody will deny that, and nobody would like to pollute the cities. And India, in particular, we have worst polluted cities in the world. Some of the cities. So it's very important.
Correct. So when the Prime Minister talks about 800 gigawatts by 2030, we're also beginning to see a very significant drop in the prices of solar, for example. Come down from 2.5 rupees or 2 rupees 30 paisa per unit or something like that. What will this do towards the overall cost of energy for a consumer?
Yeah. So once solar is at, you're right, 2 rupees 30 paise, it is definitely going to change scenario completely. And I think solar is the cheapest energy source going to be in the world. And definitely Prime Minister Modi has always talked about vision for solar. He wants to achieve 800 gigawatt. Whether it will happen or not, we don't know. Maybe my thought is that we could reach around 400, 450. But nevertheless, I think there is a very strong intent for that. With that, definitely it is going to put pressure on other forms of energy. I don't think that oil and gas will continue to enjoy the position where they are today. Today we are talking about 62, 63. Maybe short term, it will still could go up to 70, 75, but it's not going to be like that. So solar is going to drive, like in China, wind energy, the way they are investing, it has started actually putting pressure on oil and gas. So it's going to be at the end of the day, consumers are going to be benefited. No doubt on that.
Very, very interesting. And this whole talk that is going on, I was reading a paper which said that in the foreseeable future, the cost of energy for an individual consumer will become zero.
That's a wish, definitely. Of course, if you look at, there is going to be some investment, of course, to produce that energy which is free of cost. Yes, but energy costs are going to be drastically reduced, just like what we have seen in telecom.
Correct.
So it's definitely going to happen. Maybe it could happen 20 years, 30 years from now. But even for reducing carbon emissions and moving to cleaner energy, renewable energy, you are going to invest a lot. And it's not going to be just like that, but consumer is going to pay much lower than what he is paying today.
Interesting. So Shailendra, I'm going to move to the next section of our conversation, which are, a few questions for you, and then I come to some personal questions. For someone who has spent time with the government, for someone who spent time in a large multinational and now on your own, what are some of the core values you believe in?
So basically, I would think three core values, Shutosh. One is integrity. I think that's the most important thing for me, my people in my company, and I would say by and large, the integrity is the most important value. And what happens is that I work in a space where I work with all the competitors. So there it becomes even more important for me to ensure that there are strict firewalls between the companies. So tomorrow, HPCL should not mind me working with Petronas. Petronas should not mind me working with BP. So all these things are very, very important. So integrity for me and my team. I always, when I talk about these values for my company, integrity comes to top. I would also think that the excellence is another value, which again, I want to ensure that I give best to my customers. I achieve the best. Every person who is part of my team, he or she should think that he has to or she has to give the best. How we can improve. So continuous improvement, of course, is there, but at the end of the day, we want to achieve excellence, and that's what we want to do. So that's the second value I would think, Ashutosh. And the third value I would think in general is about the transparency or honesty in my business. Means on one side I can't say that I believe that work should be cleaner, and at second thing I go and tell somebody to burn coal. Means obviously walk the talk becomes extremely important.
Very true. Very true. And what would you say is your leadership style?
Okay, so leadership style, if I really look at it, means if I was in professional life in a corporate life, my definition of leadership was different from how I would define leadership when I'm on my own. So there you have your people, well-defined frameworks where you have to work within that. You have people, highly skilled people working with you, and you always have to get work done from those people. So leadership will be coming more as a, means I won't say that entrepreneurial leadership will completely different skill set, but I would say that when you are in comfort zone leading the team, you get every month salary. So you know that, okay, there is something KPIs which I want to achieve, and I can do it. So if I don't get person X, I will always go to person Y and still lead that team. And sometimes I could push them. So it could be sometimes leadership by force.
Mhm.
But when I talk about entrepreneurial leadership, I think more comes with the leadership by commitment.
Interesting.
That I myself have to show to my company, to my clients,
Mhm.
that I lead by the example. Here, I don't have luxury to have people
I see.
who will be coming from different backgrounds, from IIMs of the world,
I
and they work for me.
That's
So I can see clearly that distinctive, and it's a more challenging, I can tell you that.
very interesting. So I'm going to now move to the last segment of our conversation, which is some questions for you personally.
Okay.
Shailendra, as you look back at your life and as you look ahead at all the great things that you will do, from where you stand today, what does success mean to Shailendra?
Success means to me is, I would think, Ashutosh, that what makes me happy. I think it's the most important thing, and what gives me joy. So it will not be just joy of me earning something. Money is the last part. But if I can help my customers to win their business, if I can help my people to get satisfaction out of that, if I can train people who will acquire the knowledge, for betterment of their companies, of their society. Means I can just give you one example, Ashutosh, here, that we conducted some training for HPCL petrol pumps a few years back in Ahmedabad. And after we did, and that was more on the soft skill, that how we should treat customers, customer delight, etc. And there, after our training, one person came to me. He said that now onwards, I have decided to give up my gutka.
Okay.
And so that, I think, brings joy to me, that I am able to help someone with that. It is like a story of starfish, that how you can help community at large
Absolutely.
to change for better.
Very nice. And a follow-up question for that from you is that who or what inspires you?
I would say everybody around me. It means you learn so much from every person you meet, and that's always I like to do. I meet a lot of people, and in fact, now my in my advisory role or consultancy, it allows me to help meet people across the world, and I learn from everybody. I would say that every person has a stake.
Okay.
So I learn from my people around me a lot. In fact, Ashutosh, you could be an inspiration to me in the sense that the way you write books and the way you have managed your career, and now I think this is all inspiration. My father always was a big inspiration for me.
Wonderful.
So
So I have time for two more questions for you. My next question is on failure. On failure. And just
Okay.
before we started, we were talking about failure. We all fail and we all learn.
Yeah.
My question to you is, what have been some of your learnings from your mistakes?
Okay. So I would say a lot of mistakes I have made in my life, and I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
If I think about the business, and the mistake there, because I always think that if I can learn something from there. So EVs, electric vehicles, even 2 years back, very few people were talking about that. Means now everybody talks about that, and I always had seen that that's going to be a very big in future. And I was actually talking to one company. They were looking for investor, and I had decided to approach some companies. And one company I found value, thinking that they will go and acquire or invest into that. And we had come to a stage where I was almost certain that now this thing will happen. Unfortunately, that took longer time than what I thought, and we lost that opportunity. By the time I got some investor, this company said that they already have found some other investor.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So that was, when I look back and when I look at this, I think that was some mistake, that I should not have just relied on one company. I should have found few more options. So now when I try to help companies to find business partners or the buyers, I always look around and find out more options.
Interesting. And my last question to you, for the thousands of young people who will listen to our conversation, what would your advice be to a young individual who's starting off on her or his journey in the corporate world?
So my advice to young people, he or she, is that never afraid to take risks.
Okay.
There will be always risks, whatever you do, but go with the confidence, acquire the knowledge to overcome those challenges, because sometimes the risk could be seen, but they are not really risk when you start working on it. So risk-taking ability has to be improved. Means, that's for sure. Even if you fail, you should not think that world for me is over. You should always learn something from there and you should move on. So I think these are very, very important. I would say that, the young managers with their better use of technology, I think they have more access to what's happening around the world. So try to get as much as possible, try to learn as much as possible.
Fantastic. Shailendra, thank you so much. The conversation has been very, very enlightening and I've learned a lot. I mean, for example, I had no idea that oil reserves would last another 100 to 110 years or coal would last for another 60 or 70 years. Thank you again for this amazing conversation.
My pleasure, Ashish. And again, thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity. My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.